my name is Claudio Guglieri. I'm the Group Creative Director at Huge Oakland. I'm a graphic designer by discipline, but over the years, I guess, part of my professional growth has been to learn how to lead teams and build teams. (2015). Damn. All right. So yeah, I was. Let's see. In the last 4 years, um, I that's actually a really good point. I took a little bit of a detour in kind of like where I live and what I do. So in 2016, I took a job at Microsoft. I moved from San Francisco to Seattle, moved my whole family, and professionally, I really wanted to experience what it was to truly work at a product-driven company such as Microsoft, right? And it's a company that has been doing this for over 30 years. So I really wanted to get like a good understanding and a good taste of what that was like. I spent a couple of years at Microsoft. I work in two different teams. The first one leading the design of what's called Groove, which is the music app that comes with Windows 10, the first party app. I had a lot of fun, and partially what I was more interested in ended up becoming my second role at Microsoft, which is leading the art direction of Fluent Design. Fluent Design came up in 2016 and is, you could think about it as the evolution of the design system at Microsoft. It used to be Metro, as in like embracing flatness and going mobile first. Fluent Design was supposed to be, or it is supposed to be, the one design system that expands across all the different devices that Microsoft has, some takes part of, as in part of the ecosystem of all the experiences they have. That was 2016 until 2018. Only recently, less than a year ago, I moved back to San Francisco. I think there was only so much rain we could take. My wife Jacqueline, she wasn't having a great time with the weather. She's from Orange County. I'm from the south of Spain. So I think from a family perspective, we really needed to come back to a place where had better weather. We're close to her family. So that was mainly the core reason why we came back. And from a professional perspective, I left Microsoft. I had a great time there, met amazing people, but I left it to pursue different, different type of role. I love the work that we did over there, but I did miss a little bit how fast-paced and the different pockets you get your head in when you're more in a freelance or agency life. So I decided to change, come back to San Francisco, started freelancing for a bunch of companies, met lots of great people again, so a great experience overall. And only recently, after many, many months of talk, I decided to join Huge. And I knew these guys at Huge because I worked briefly at Elephant, which is one of the companies of Huge, specialized in Apple. This is, again, almost 3 years ago. So we've been talking for a while, and this opportunity came up where they basically were looking for somebody to lead their creative department in Oakland, which is the only office they have in the West Coast. And I was really honest with them, saying I've never done that. I have enough experience driving teams and being the one doing the work. I've never been at a position where I can influence a bigger organization. So it's a little bit of an experiment, but I'm excited about it. Uh, I, I think so first of all, I think I've been really, really lucky. I somehow exposed myself to the right people, and I went through this journey that, I only had partially control of it, right? Everything else was just being the right time, the right moment, and all that. I think every single company that I've been to or that I work with or work for has given me a certain type of knowledge that had allowed me to, move forward. Finance Interactive gave me the rigor and gave me the discipline to be able to, and also gave me a little bit the working with Anton and all the people there, gave me the the philosophy that I still apply to my work, but also gave me the, sounds kind of weird, but like the strength to see things through, not just do the beginning of it and pretend that that's it and then move on. Like see things through as in working in one project for, I don't know, like 3 or more months until you get it done. Be Real came up with different things. It was more on the experiential side of things. I met like super talented people that will have never joined an agency such as Fantasy Interactive because of how niche at that point their scope of work was, right? So everything sort of like worked out. If you ask me what is the most challenging, I think it's different times, different assignments have different levels of difficulty. So for instance, working at Microsoft was really challenging from a perspective of, it wasn't much about timelines. It was more about learning how to be more effective. And that's what happens when you work in a big organization. Like sometimes it's not just enough to do the work, it's how you frame it, it's how you identify the need, how you sell it around, what ends up having a bigger impact. And that's just weird if you think about it, right? We should only care about the work, but it's sadly not the reality. Or maybe, and I don't think this is, it's not fair to say, oh, this is a Microsoft thing. I think this is endemic to big companies. It just happens, that's the way it works. So that's a skill that I never had to develop before, something I had to start doing. Wow, that's hardcore. It's weird, but I don't have that much experience in Europe anymore. It's been I've been in the US for like 9 years now. And before the UK, I guess, I don't think the UK was that different from the US. I only spent like 3 years in Spain. So what I will say, let me frame it this other way. You could take a look at that. I could answer that question from the perspective of like the type of clients. And even in the US, you work for like European clients, right? I think it really depends on the nature of the assignment. So, for instance, like for many years, especially being in New York, the dynamic with the client was pretty much about like learning, working, presenting, feedback, working, presenting, feedback. If you move to the West Coast, it's super different. Like they don't like that. The relationship you have with the client is much closer because they normally have a team in house. Therefore, you don't play this like Mad Men show of, revealing the work and like, moving the curtain and like, oh my God, that's amazing. It doesn't work that way, right? Like you have to take them along. And you made them part of the problem, you made them part of the solution. Everybody feels they have skin in the game, and it just works a bit better. Europe, though, I think there's when you work for a company based in the US and people from Europe reach out to you, obviously there's a budget disconnection sometimes. If you get over the hump, the expectations, I think, are equally as high. What I like from working with European companies is that they cut to the chase faster than Americans do sometimes. And it's not fair to say Americans, like it's such a big country, but I felt that they were more driven by, maybe because of the distance, they were like trying to hit kind of like, this is what we want to do. If you come back with like an increased scope of, from my original request, it's not going to work because I don't have the money. So less money, cut to the chase, do the work. Sorry, it's a long answer. I'm not too sure. It's kind of weird. Like, I guess less budgets. I don't know. But at the same time, like you get like this raw creativity from you all the time. Yeah, it's unclear. Yeah, that definitely has changed over the years. So 2010 was mostly about big portals, heavy content sites. 2012 started, or like 2011, 2012 ended up being, it was all about video streaming, lots of video streaming clients. It was super interesting. 2013, 2014 all ended up being about travel. So the travel industry kind of like took off. And I think, there were some websites done by, like, for example, Work & Co. with Virgin. They redesigned virgin.com. And that basically like made everybody wake up, and I ended up working for lots of airlines. That was super interesting. Then I think as I moved to the West Coast, so we, as in me and my family, we moved to the West Coast, everything changed a little bit from being so campaign driven to be more product driven. So it wasn't that much about like, oh, we released this thing, it was more about helping teams doing things. So you help whatever Adobe to work on the learn and support section and see how you could like motivate people to like get over the hump of having to learn a new tool. Like it's unclear, right? Like it gets a bit more blurry. I think now, there's still a little bit of some companies are still getting to this kind of like rampage of design systems. So it's normal that a company will come and say, we need a design system. And you're like, all right, well, a design system is the consequence of having, a design, is not the goal per se. So that's kind of like what's going on still right now. What I'm hoping to tap on is everything else that is going on in the valley. I think like automotive, what is the future of work? What is the future of transportation? That's kind of like pockets where I would like to get to. Okay, I think the role of a designer doesn't stop. Design is such a vast, discipline, and that's a good thing. So there would always be new technologies. I think what doesn't change that much is the framework in which you use to approach a problem. As in learn, collaborate, work, iterate, execute. Like that doesn't necessarily change. So, right now is like machine learning, as in artificial intelligence and all that. Like I don't think it doesn't feel to me like it's a trend. I think that's here to stay. So I think designers might have to accommodate and kind of like take the best of it, but also like learn, kind of like redefine themselves to provide the most value, right? So the most value is not going to be something that could be easily automated in the future. I think designers need to look at kind of like what is their contribution, and this is part of related to my talk. What can we do as human creative individuals to provide something that could not be provided by a machine? It's a big one. Okay, let me break it down a little bit. So I was taking a shower. This is a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking about we had some issues with like hot water. They had to cut the hot water for like a day, and I was talking to my wife, and it's like, well, you know what? Like back when maybe my grandparents, they didn't have like probably they had hot water, but it wasn't as easy as today, right? Like probably they will wipe their butt with like newspapers and things like that. Like it was a different time to be alive, especially in Spain. The more I don't want to lose my train of thoughts, but basically the more technologies come in and are part of our life, the easier our life gets, right? I mean, that's why I can think of like, I can think of elevated solutions to non-existent problems as in marketing, and that is because my basic needs are covered. So the more, let's say transportation, self-driving cars, the moment I don't have to worry about that, we keep removing barriers that somehow define us, but also take time. I think I'm really excited about the future because the more we remove that, the higher kind of like level of thoughts that we can have, and the higher the problems that we can try to solve. So if you think about this same conversation 40 years ago, hey, what do you think about sewage and hot water automatically? You don't even have to do anything. What about like, imagine you want food, you put it here and it comes automatically. You don't have to go to the supermarket. They will be like, wow, that's amazing. That to me is the equivalent to that, right? Like if you don't have to drive, like in the US, apparently part of, again, sounds like an evil plan, right? But part of the initiative towards self-driving cars is the fact that that is the third place where people spend most of their time every day, commuting. if you take that burden out of people, what would they do? Would they consume information that, whatever mass media wants you to consume? Would you consume advertising? Like, would you work more, right? All those possibilities are there. So I don't know, am I answering your question? All right, so as I said, I joined Huge a couple of months ago, no, a month ago. So it's still the beginning of it. I think I need to do first things first, and that is to help the team kind of like come together and become the best product design agency in the Bay. Mm-hmm. So that needs to happen. The future projects that I want to do, I guess a couple of differences. There are the projects that we're doing right now, and some of them are really cool. Obviously, I cannot talk about it, but what I'll say is like they expand over the traditional sense of digital design. They're getting into spaces. They get into the intersection between physical and digital, which is evergreen and beautiful. The future projects that we will do, I think there's a wide variety. Like some of them will be cool, some of them will not. I think it's more about the type of projects that we want to do. So I just got started, but the goal is to kind of like move away a little bit from marketing and more into being able to help companies by accelerating their design tracks. All right, so it's called How Far Can We Push It? And it's basically, I cover what I consider are the most important human abilities we should consider when we're designing digital experiences. Mm-hmm. And the point that I'm trying to make is that there are many things happening right now, as in, technology is evolving, experiences expand across devices, input senses. We need to find common ground in what defines us as humans and use that to define innovation. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to cover basically 3 different abilities, as in our motor system abilities, vision abilities, and cognitive abilities, and try to navigate how could we use those to our advantage when we're designing, from web experiences to full VR experiences.